if what you want is a shortcut to appear more strategic as a product manager, then this is not the video for you. You should stop watching because it's not what I'm going to be talking about. However, if you want to become more strategic as a product manager, then you should keep watching. Perhaps it doesn't only apply to product managers, it can apply to any kind of profile. In my life, I had a lot of opportunities to hear people talk about business strategy, about how one company is doing on the market, what are they trying to do, why are they trying to do that. In other occasions, like I was hearing like, you need to think of the long game, you need to think about what's coming. And I was like, oh my God, like I want to be in this. And I remember they were telling me, this is not a child's conversation. And I was like, why are you assuming I'm a child, being a child? Very pathetic, but that was me. Like, sad to recognize, but I was a very weird child, probably the one that you used to hate in school. On the other hand, personally, I was such a disaster. I had no control on my social life. I had no control on my athletic life. I had no control on my hobbies. I had no vision in who I wanted to become as a person. I think I was always a nice person, not a kind person. I was a nice person, the nice, boring one. I always wanted to help people. It was just making me happy. I guess it was a little bit selfish because it was making me happy, and I still kind of have that, which is why I have this channel. But there was a very negative aspect to my personality and to who I was when I was younger, and I was very entitled. I was a mess. I was, from the perspective of my parents, most probably I was a difficult child. I was thinking the world turned around me. Like, I thought I was the sun in the solar system. And one day I was watching TV and there was this TV show, something like Older Brother, the show where there's kids that are problematic within families and they are overreacting, and then there's a guy who is like their big brother and comes to help them become better. And I remember initially thinking, oh my God, how can they be so messed up? Like, what's wrong with them? Then very quickly I started saying, oh my God, I do that. I also do that. I do that. And obviously it wasn't so dramatic. It wasn't to that level, but my behaviors were not so different. Like, the scale at which those behaviors were performed was a little bit different, but the behaviors were still there. I know, I was like so flooded with emotions that I didn't know how to deal with. And then my parents were going through a divorce and this all made it worse. And I remember when I started watching the shows, I thought, oh my God, I don't want to become this person. And I started saying, okay, how can I apply what I know or my business learnings that I've had into my personal life? I started thinking, what can I do to change this? And I was trying to think, okay, who do I want to become? What do I want to do out of my life? I was like just so frustrated sometimes and didn't know how to deal with that. And like most people who have seen me in the work environment would be like, what? Because I was told I'm very structured, very organized, and oh yeah, everything's so great, or everything's so under control and so even-tempered. And even in my personal life, if you get to know my friends now, they're like, you're so calm and so collected and so on. And it's like, well, if you saw me in my teenage years, like when hormones started flooding, like, a very different picture. And in order to change that, I was researching a lot. I was reading a lot, trying to figure out psychology books and psychology topics. I was asking questions. I was always asking why? Then I started focusing on the traits that I wanted to have. Like, what are those traits that people have? I wanted to develop patience. I wanted to develop endurance. I wanted to develop resilience. I wanted to develop hard work. My parents were always mocking me a little bit. And I started thinking about all these traits that I wanted to cultivate. And I remember sometimes I was going to encyclopedia and like searching for what these traits meant. And then I was thinking, how can I actually cultivate this? How can I become more like this? And then I was reading books such as The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I was reading other types of books, like, do you remember about The Count of Monte Cristo? My dad was telling me about The Count of Monte Cristo, and my sister was telling me about Les Miserables. I don't know if you've read Les Miserables, but Jean Valjean didn't have a very bright future ahead of him, and he could have taken a direct path of what he wanted his life to become, and he completely turned it around. And that's what I started doing with myself. I think my sister doesn't realize how much influence that book had on me. I think she still thinks I didn't finish it. But it did have a strong influence in me. With The Count of Monte Cristo, like when then the movie came, I was watching it with my dad. I was asking questions. Why this? Why that? Why not this? Why not that? And my dad was telling me always, there's a bigger picture. There's a bigger picture. And I remember at that moment, I was used to that lingo, but I didn't really know what it meant. And then when the end came, he would ask me, did you see that? There was a bigger picture. And then it started to click on me a little bit. I thought maybe I'll share some of those learnings that I achieved, like maybe from the background that I was in, from how I applied it to my personal life, and help you become a little bit more strategic. I've grouped all these topics that I saw as a common thing that helped me grow into 4 different areas. On the one hand, there's the objectives, then there's the learning, there's the environment, and finally there's the self-work. Self-work is the hardest part of all. Maybe we could start with the objectives. When it comes to objectives, think to yourself, when was the last time you set yourself an objective? If you had entrepreneur friends around you, maybe you've heard, set yourself goals, 3-month goals, 6-month goals, 1-year goals. Does it sound familiar? But if you don't, you're probably stuck in your bubble. You're just thinking about, oh my God, I gotta do the work today. Oh my God, I gotta do the meeting now. It's all about a reactive type of energy. When you're trying to become more strategic, you need to think about the long term. And that means that you need to be having a direction of where you're going in the long term. But it's very difficult to think about the long term when you're not even thinking about the medium term. So you need to start building that muscle of how to think in a time that is further than today. There are 2 types of objectives. There are the personal objectives, and then there's the work objectives. In terms of the personal objectives, start writing yourself personal objectives, meaning create an objective for the week. You need to start small and with something achievable so that you know you'll be able to do what it is that you're trying to do. So set yourself a goal for the week, like I'll go exercise twice a week. I'll stretch my back once a week at least. And those are objectives and you're thinking, yeah, but there's no strategy there. Yeah, I know. Then with your work life, you need to do the same. You'll start setting an objective for the day. You'll start your morning 10 minutes earlier than what you would normally do to prepare for the day. Use those 10 minutes to think, what do I want to achieve today? What is the main goal of today? Is it to have a sprint ready, to finish the requirements of a feature? And then go through your calendar and think, is this helping me reach that objective? Yes or no? Then should I be doing this? Yes or no? With team meetings, you don't have a lot of room for change. However, with all the time in between, with all the empty slots in between, you can choose what it is that you're going to be doing. You need to write yourself down that objective and look at it throughout the day and think, am I doing something to improve that objective? You need to be intentional in your day. So before you go into a meeting, you're going to do the same thing that you did with your day, but with your meeting. What do I want to achieve with this meeting? What do I want to achieve with this slot of work that I blocked? What do I want to achieve with this Slack message? And then after the meeting, reflect. Was I able to do what I wanted or not? The more you start doing that, you'll wonder, why do I want to do this objective? And then you'll think, oh, because I want to become better at doing my job, or because I want to solve a user problem much better, or because I want to become more of a leader. When you start repeating these actions recurrently, you'll realize you're not going to be thinking, this is not helping me achieve this objective. You're going to start saying, this is not helping me become a better product manager. This is not helping me become more accountable with my stakeholders. This is not helping me build a better relationship with my engineers. And you're going to notice this switch. You're no longer thinking about your day as, oh, I'm just starting this task. Did I get it done or not? I'm delayed, blah, blah. You're going to be thinking about, am I doing the right thing? You're going to start asking yourself questions and you're going to start thinking with outcomes in mind. You're going to forget about actions and you're going to think about outcomes. Achieving that mindset doesn't happen from the outcome and then the objective. It happens the other way around. Sorry for all those people who say, oh, this is so whatever. I seriously don't care. I don't like that type of bullshit. And I was asking ChatGPT about how to become a more strategic product manager. It's the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. It was suggesting shift from task management to problem solving. How is this helping me? Challenge assumptions and decisions. Again, how is this helping me? What am I trying to reach there? Start leading with data, not just deadlines. Yeah, everything sounds super good, but I was asking for action points and it was giving me such BS action points. Adopt long-term thinking and visioning. You cannot ask someone who has never done this exercise to start from the finish. That is the finished product, but how do you get there? How do you start? I need you to do this mind shift. I need you to be open here and try to listen to why I'm explaining this. Going back to the topic. Before thinking about the outcome, first you need to think about the objectives. Then the outcomes will come. So it's like when you start exercising. Initially, you don't say, I want to become the healthiest athlete in the world. How you start is you set yourself objectives of doing steps, doing calorie burning, maybe eating less crap, or perhaps of sleeping a little bit better. And then when you start noticing the benefits, you realize what the outcome is. So I know it feels counterproductive, but that is how you get somewhere. You first start setting the objectives and then the outcome will come. You need to have this business acumen before you're able to do that. There's small goals you need to set for yourself first, and then the outcome will come after. The goals that you set yourself, you're going to evaluate them after. Well, for the goals for a meeting, you're going to evaluate them after the meetings. For the goal of the day, you're going to evaluate it at the end of the day. For your personal goals, you're going to evaluate them at the end of the week. If you feel comfortable enough with setting those goals for the first week, what you're going to do now is setting goals for the next week. But it doesn't end there. Now you're also going to set goals for the end of the month. Write a calendar invite and write those goals that you set for the week and for the month and block some time in your calendar so that then you check whether you did that or not. Next topic, learning. Let me check. There are different types of learnings that you can do. Self-type of learning here is reading books. For me, it is a pain to read books. Like audiobooks for me were a blessing because I need to do something else at the same time as I'm reading. However, when I have a goal in mind, I do read that book. When there's something I can learn from that book, I love reading that book. In any case, I did write down some books that I thought could be good for you. One very known book for strategy is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. You're gonna be thinking, I'm not going to war. And yeah, you're not. But by this approach to warfare, you'll be able to learn a lot of how to approach situations, how to approach competition, how to approach situation with where you're not in advantage. How do you approach a new market? You need to be open-minded in order to see that. At the beginning, nothing might make sense, but as time passes, things in that book are going to start making sense and you'll see. There's another one that I really like. It's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is a little bit controversial, and I know many people are not gonna care about this, but it's about a change in mindset. It's about not chasing the rat wheel. This is a book that changed my mindset a lot and how I approach being in companies. For me, it was about learning. I wanted to learn as much as possible from as many topics as possible. So at some point I had all the learnings. It wasn't about a paycheck. It was about a learning. Then the purpose you get from this book can be very different from one person to another. But to me, it was an eye-opening experience. As I said, I was in an entrepreneurship environment and I was always hearing about these topics. But the book was very good to open my mindset to new ideas. And I think it could be good for you. It's about thinking about the long game. It explains the story, thinking about the long game. Another one I mentioned before, The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. It's about how you don't react on the now. You don't do what you want to do in that moment, but you're thinking about the longer term. You're thinking about the long vision. By reading about this experience, you're going to start thinking, oh, should I approach this way? Or should I be thinking about the long game? Should I be binge watching Netflix? Or should I do some exercise to feel better? You're going to be contrasting whether your actions are driving you to that long term or whether you're doing something that feels good in the now. Another good one here is Les Miserables, as I said before. This is about someone whose fate was very clearly defined and still they chose a different fate by thinking about the long term. I'm not going to spoil the book for you. I think you can take a look. Don't go to ChatGPT to learn it. Like really take the time, like get the book, get an audiobook. It's a very thick book. It's a very thick book, but maybe there's an audiobook version. You can set some little goals of a little bit every day, and that way you learn something every day. Another thing you can do, this is something I've never done, but I have a friend who's very strategic, and she always tells me, read this biography about this person or that person, because it's not something I've applied to myself, but I do know it's something that works. harder type of learning, like hard skills in terms of learning. Take courses on open courseware. I'm not talking about the BS courses on product or whatever. Like, learn something that you wouldn't learn otherwise on the job. Open courseware has so many courses on different topics. I was even using it during my time in engineering. For when a class was not enough for me, I was checking classes from other universities so I could round up my knowledge, because I was so completely clueless, or I was completely lost. I thought, maybe I'm stupid, but perhaps there is someone who explains this a little bit better. And try to learn about marketing strategy. Try to learn about innovation. Try to learn about business models. There's so much information out there. Go to websites that are specific to strategy content. Go to business schools, magazines, or journals. Go to Harvard Business Review. Check websites that are specific to that type of content. Try to understand how do brands win? How are brands positioning themselves? This is very aligned with marketing strategy. When you start getting your foot into this pool of marketing strategy, you realize how product management is shaped all around this. But I'll let you discover that on your own. But maybe you can do the research yourself. Like, I've done research so many times before. Within the learning, there's also not only soft learning and hard learning, there's practical learning. Most probably you're working in a company, right? Or you want to work in a specific company. If you have no work experience, you shouldn't become a product manager. Because it's going to be very tough. Try to gain some experience first in something you're good at. But if you already have experience, think about the companies that you've already worked on, the companies that you want to work on, companies that you are at right now, and try to figure out what was the strategy. If you were to guess, how do they want to win in the market? Who are they trying to target? Think also about what competitors are doing. Now, disclaimer, most occasions competitors are doing stuff, but the fact that they're doing it doesn't necessarily mean it's working for them. From my perspective, having worked in so many companies, they're all copying each other, thinking that there's something that the other knows that they don't know. And it's very often not the case. So just be aware of this. What was their value proposition? How were they positioning themselves? What was their competitive advantage? Ask yourself questions like that. Google those terms. Try to learn about those terms, because I'm not going to bird feed you all of it. You need to do some of the homework yourself. Search for these terms and then respond to them with information. Take a business model canvas and try to fill it out with your current company, with a company that you want to work for. And then Google and check whether that is it or not. We're going to enter now the third block. And this is the environment. Really curate your environment. Science says that we become like the 5 people we have a closest relationship with. If your environment is very reactive, if your environment is of, I want a reward now, it's going to be very difficult for you to be thinking about the long term. If your environment is going to mock you because you're trying to change the way that you're doing, I don't know if you know about the crab theory, or there's a bucket full of crabs. Whenever a crab is trying to escape the bucket, the other crabs pull them back in. They didn't want anyone to do better. They wanted to be in their comfort zone of, no. Come back here. You're not going to make progress. You're just going to sit here and stay there where I'm comfortable seeing you at. So choose who you talk about these topics with. Decide who it is that you want to share, that you're trying to change something. Because otherwise you're going to get mocked. They're going to tell you, oh, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not good enough to do this. So be careful who you share these stories with, because all your energy is going to go into defending why it is that you're trying to change something instead of changing it. Try to build a new network. First, think about, is my network a network with strategic individuals? How many of my friends are thinking about the long term? If it's not, think about, where is it that I could find more people who are thinking about the long term? Go to events, you go to meetups, you go to presentations to hear how people think. You can hear what people say. Now, there's going to be a lot of bullshit in there. So you need to have a little bit of a filter for bullshit. Be careful with the information that you decide to take in. If you're going to those events, don't go to talk to the people who are even more lost than you are. Go to the people who are more ambitious. Go to the people who are able to teach you something you didn't know. Go to the people who made a difference in their life. Go to the people who learned something. Also, engage with questions, not only in those networking events, but within your own company. Be aware of whether those questions are something they can answer. Maybe don't ask them about where your company is heading, because sometimes they don't know and they're put under a lot of pressure. But ask, what company do you think is doing very well? And ask them about the why. Why do you think they're doing so well? Pay attention to what it is that they're saying. Try to also understand yourself. How is the company I'm in organized? What are the different verticals? Why are they organized like this? What is the reasoning behind? Why is the structure like this and not like like that. Always give them a way out. You can say, in case they don't know, because I don't know how senior your lead is, you can always say, hey, I noticed our organization is built like this, but I want to understand why. But if you don't want to talk about it, it's fine. If they know, they'll respond. If they are telling you some gibberish, then give up. That's not the person to ask. That's something you're going to see a lot in networking events. Now, if you've been watching this long, I did put a lot of effort in making these videos. I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. No one's going to know that you liked it. People don't track that. I cannot even see who liked something. But it would really help other people to know that the content that I'm creating is good, or at least that it's worth watching. It would be nice to know that this video made some kind of positive impact, even if it wasn't perfect. Now, last topic. This is the part of self-work. Being more curious. Assuming that, hey, not everything I know is everything I should know. There's more to know. Perhaps the person next to me can teach me something. Like this person, if they are here, there's something they know. What could they teach me? Or what are they interested in? Maybe there's something I could learn from that. Try to approach people from a different perspective. Try to change your mindset a little bit. You've been in an environment where perhaps you're not as strategic as you could be. You cannot make a tortilla without breaking an egg, they say in Spain. A tortilla is like a frittata. In any case, you need to do something differently. You need to expose yourself to something different. You need to be curious. You need to be open to change. Otherwise, there's not going to be any change done. This is the first part about the self-work. And the second part of the work is about emotional management. And this is more related even to therapy work. There's this exercise that I really like that a therapist once taught me. And it's related to describing a situation, describing the emotion that you felt, describing what you did, and what happened afterwards. And also describe what you could have done differently and what would have happened in that case. When you've done this process, when you understand the emotion that arises within you, you're able to change that emotion. You're able to change how you feel about that particular situation. And you can give it a different meaning by writing it down and trying to analyze it. You can think, oh, why did this make me feel this way? So now I can actually change how I feel about it. And you're going to be thinking, this is me. I cannot change how I feel about something. Well, of course you can change. Neural pathways are developed all the time. And you can reprogram the software that is running in your hardware. One way to do this is by doing positive reinforcement. Like when there's something you did differently, give yourself a reward. Like, for example, when I was able to not get upset about a specific type of reply, I would give myself a reward. Another thing I used to do when I wanted to get myself to do something, for example, homework when I was a kid, because I was very lazy, I was able to do homework super fast. I would do it on the way to school and I was very fast and I could do it. So unless it was a project, I could actually do it on the last minute. And when I actually needed to start putting in the work at home, I was so lazy and I didn't want to. So I was programming myself in very weird ways. I was saying, okay, I either sit looking at the wall or I do my homework. Those were the two options. At some point, I was so bored. I was so tired of looking at that wall that I would start doing my homework because it was more fun than looking at the wall. Did my parents force me to do this? Not at all. My parents didn't know this was going on because they already thought I was a weird enough kid as to add more to their problems. It was helping me. Like I also do that whenever I want to get more creative. I get myself bored. I try to switch off from platforms like Netflix. I have it right now, which is horrible, but I'm planning to switch off again. Think about what it is that you can do, like eliminating things that are changing your behaviors to something undesirable and try to turn them into something positive. Just think about, do I want to keep doing things the way I was doing them, or do I want to change them? Change the way of making your habits work. Like whenever I haven't gone to a gym for a very long time, I get super lazy. I'm the laziest person in the world. Anyone knows this. For work, I'm very motivated because I'm getting paid for that. But if there is no money reward, I can be super lazy. Most people are going to tell you I'm very motivated, but I'm motivated because I trick myself to be motivated. When I needed to establish the habit of going to the gym, I started paying for coffee at the gym. I stopped buying coffee at home and I could only have my coffee at the gym. And that's how I started building the habit. And then eventually, to me, going to gyms were happy times where I was able to get coffee. Even though you're intoxicating yourself with coffee, to me, those were happy times. I created myself a good reinforcement for going to the gym. There's the part of reinforcing yourself and there is the part of the emotional management. As I was mentioning before, with emotional management, it's not only about what you do or you stop doing because of how you feel with your emotions. Like when we are feeling emotions, sometimes we are intoxicated with those emotions. And you need to think about it. Is this how I want it to end every time? Is there something I would like to change? Do I really need to say something mean right now? Could I say something differently? Am I going to feel the same way tomorrow? If you're angry about something, go for a walk. If you're upset about something, take some space. If you're annoyed at something, do some sports. Like whenever I get angry, I think everyone who's worked with me knows I go to a gym. I start beating myself up in the gym. I use some anger for something positive for me because it doesn't help me to keep it inside. So I try to do something about it. And I get very angry. Like when I see people making very stupid decisions that are very bad for what I'm doing, I get super upset. And then I go to the gym and then I'm happy. I'm relaxed and I'm happy. I then try to find a solution. But it's very difficult to find a solution when your emotions are taking over. When you're angry, it's very difficult to be objective with your solution. Something I did see. A lot of people are driven by their ego. When it comes to product management, especially. I'm not saying that's your case. I'm just saying it's something I've seen a lot. And I used to be like that. So that's how I can recognize it, because I used to be driven by ego. But eventually I noticed, oh, actually it doesn't help me at all to be driven by my ego. What else can I do, you know? When I was younger, I wanted to be right all the time. And then I was like, it's not about being right. It's about doing the right thing. Is it my ego talking or is it reason talking? And try to step out from the situation and really understand whether you're doing the right thing or not. I done this thing where I was poor parents of mine. Like when I was younger, I just wanted to win every single argument. My dad was telling me I should become a lawyer because I could argue forever. I had very good arguments and my arguments were very researched. I was looking for facts. I was looking for newspaper articles. I was looking for sources. And I was coming up to my mom like, oh, look, I found this. This is like this because of this. This is like this because of this. So I'm right. And my mom was like, no, I'm right because I'm an adult. And I felt so frustrated. But it was so silly. Like, why did I need to win? I didn't need to win, but it took me a while to realize I didn't need to win. Like, relationships are more important. Same thing happens with your team. Do you really care about who made the right choice, whether it was your engineer, whether it was the data analyst, or whether it was you as a product manager? Who cares? Now, if you came up with an idea and then someone else claimed that idea as theirs, then that's a problem. I would also assume that as a problem. That really annoys me. But if you don't want to do something just because it wasn't your idea, then you do have a lot of self-work to do. You need to think about, why do I need to feel important? There's this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I forgot to mention it before. This will help you a lot to get over entitlement. You'll realize how unimportant you are in the world and how what you do doesn't really matter. When you get over this idea that you're not that important and what you do doesn't really matter, you're going to be able to focus better on building those relationships and doing work better rather than winning or making yourself feel important. And that's it for today. I think it was quite intense. I really hope you enjoy the content. If there's someone you think could actually benefit from this, please share this with them. Now that you're trying to become more strategic, perhaps you also want to become more data-driven. So I'm going to leave you a video about that. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.